Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Joe Naz Podcast. Today, man, this was an amazing episode and such an amazing story from such an amazing human. We had my friend Tracy Broughton, who is one of my BNI members in my networking group that I'm a part of. And she just has this amazing story where she was Miss America. She was a model. She acted in shows such as 90210, Baywatch, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We get into that, which is awesome. And she is just a motivational speaker. And now she helps people with a company called LegalShield and ID Shield, where she helps individuals get access to attorneys and be able to protect their identity through these programs. This episode really goes all over the place, and I really love this conversation because she resonated a lot with a lot of my values as an individual. And not only that, but she was in two life-changing car accidents where she was paralyzed from both of them and literally retaught herself how to walk and basically get her life back together. Her mindset, her personality, everything about her is lovely. Please listen to this episode. You're going to love it, and you're going to resonate with so many of the themes and the topics that we discuss. Now, also, I just want to ask a huge favor. If you love these episodes and you enjoy the content that we put out, then please do us a favor, like, comment, and share, and follow the podcast, and please subscribe to the YouTube. This stuff really helps us out a lot. And if an episode resonates with one of your best friends or one of your worst friends, you can go ahead and share either or with them. And I hope that it helps them heal and it helps them in their journey. And I hope that it's exactly what they need to hear. And I hope that these stories help you in your journey. And if there's anything you ever need or want to reach out, you can always message me. I'd be happy to get back to you. And I really appreciate you liking and sharing this podcast. We appreciate you. And please follow Joe Naz. I am everywhere on all the social medias. So see you back out there. So hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Joe Naz Podcast. Today, we have my lovely, gorgeous, and amazing friend, Miss Tracy Broughton. I'm so excited to have you on here. I know I've been trying to drag you out to this for a while. She is just this amazing soul that literally lights up everybody around her. I've had the pleasure to get to know her through a networking group that both of us are in called BNI. If you don't know what BNI is, it's called Business Network International. It's like the biggest networking organization in the world, over 200,000 members, and you have like a local chapter. And in your chapter, you have somebody who is per one profession. And so I'm an attorney, but she works with a company called LegalShield, which essentially helps provide attorneys for those who might not be able to afford hiring a normal attorney. And so we've actually had a lot of synergistic relationships in that realm. So I'm so excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I want to give a little intro into who Tracy is, because a lot of you might not know her, but some of you might know her. And so I wanted to give a little bit of background on her history so that you can understand where her knowledge and her experience comes from, because she has such a beautiful and bright history, and there's just so much that she's been involved in, and I'm excited to dive down these routes and kind of ask you about all these, because I didn't know about a lot of this stuff until you had sent me over some of this information. So first of all, Tracy was Miss America in 2011, and as a successful entrepreneur, she sought after public speaking and training. She's been a model, a designer, mother of two twin boys who are Aztecs that are crushing it right now, right? So
Yeah, they graduated from San Diego State, but so they're at La Sierra now, getting their master's paid for free. But yeah.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And she's also very much involved with humanitarian causes. She's been featured on NBC, Fox, CNN, CBS, MTV, HNL, Fox Business, Clear Channel, True TV, and more. She has starred in shows such as Two Guys and a Girl and A Pizza Kitchen, Married with Children, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I really want to hear about that because I used to watch that when I was younger. 90210, and Baywatch. Tracy enjoys speaking and making appearances for corporate accounts like Wells Fargo, California Women's Conference, Saddleback Church, Goodwill Industries, school districts, and the NAACP. She has modeled for such companies such as Nordstrom, Toys R Us, Wells Fargo, Magic Johnson, and Magic Johnson Enterprises. She has served on the board of Her She Group and Phenomenal Women, which helps women and foster children. She has owned several businesses and currently this is the CEO of legal services company leading the legal revolution and fighting identity theft issued today. She is also launching a custom crutch and cane cover company called Couture Crutches, and after surviving not one but two major car accidents, Tracy is a pioneer that has paved the way for the disabled and was honored with the Goodwill Industries Walter Knott Service Award for advancing public awareness and opportunities for people with disabilities, as well as the President's Volunteer Service Award from the White House. I'm excited to hear about what those details entail. Tracy was the first to compete in an able-bodied pageant in her wheelchair and was crowned Miss Black California. She was also the first African-American differently abled, I'm interested to hear what that means, Miss America, and many were impressed that she quickly and fully recovered from her first car accident in 1991, but it was her recuperation from her second car accident in 1996 that made her a symbol for persistence and courage. After her accident, she spent 11 years confined to a wheelchair, and today she is able and mobile, and she's walking around comfortably with a cane, and it's really impressive to see you go through this journey. So I know that was a lot. It was a mouthful. There's a lot to unload there.
Usually I'm not around when they introduce me, so that was weird in the podcast.
Yeah, right. Part of the process. You will be here the whole time. But thank you for sitting through that, and also thank you for sharing a lot of those details. And I guess when I'm hearing that, right, it's a lot of information all at once. I guess what I would maybe like to talk about are what are the top 3 things that you think help to influence and change your life and help you become the amazing woman that you are today out of that list?
Okay, so if I had to pick 3 out of those, I think it would be the loss of my mother. She was my best friend. If I could be like a quarter like her, I feel like I'm blessed.
When did you lose her?
2 months after I graduated high school.
Oh, wow. So at a
she
very
was-
young age.
Yeah, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer when I was in 4th grade,
Okay.
and they gave her 7 months to live. And she looked at me in 4th grade and said, I'll see you graduate high school. And in 4th grade, that's like forever. You know, you
Yeah.
think that's 100 years from now. And sure enough, she did. She had a bone marrow transplant, chemo, and radiation, had 3 kids,
Yeah.
even though she was in menopause and on chemo. So a miracle.
A
Never
miracle.
lost her hair. Just craziness. And so sure enough,
Sounds like a
though,
badass.
She was.
Yeah.
And so, 2 months after I graduated high school, she passed. So
You know, it's so interesting that she literally passed right when she said that she would. I wonder if she told you that she would have lived for you, you know, if you were going to be 20-something years old, if she would have lived to that point. Because I remember, like, at a Tony Robbins conference that I went to, one of the speakers was talking about when a doctor puts a time limit on someone's life, they literally will self-fulfill that time limit. So if the doctor's like, you have 6 months to live, they live 6 months and then they die.
Yep.
And so I wonder if she would have said that she was going to live another 20 years if she would have like lived up to that prophecy. So
I
it's
would think so, probably. And I
Yeah.
agree with you. I've done a lot of seminars that I've been in. I've heard the same things. But in hindsight as well, she suffered for 7 years.
Yeah, and
so
she might have
I'm
just
glad-
been done with it.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm glad that she didn't prolong it even longer.
Yeah.
I wish she was still here. I wish she could see my kids. I wish she saw me got married. But
Yeah.
The fact that she lasted that long was a miracle. It really was.
Yeah.
Because she suffered a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, God rest her soul.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it's wild how a loss at such a young age can have such a great effect on you as an adult. I know for me too, I didn't lose anybody as close as that, but I did lose several relatives to cancer when I was younger too. And it just helped me have a different outlook on life, realizing how short life can be and how precious life is. And so it definitely can have an effect on you when you're younger.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then what are the 2 other things?
I would say my car accidents, obviously.
Yeah.
Totally transformed my life and changed my life. And as you said, I think you mentioned differently abled. I don't like disabled because I
Yeah.
don't think that we're less of in the disabled community. So a lot of us say differently abled because
Yeah.
it's not about not being able to do things. We just do things in a different way. So
Yeah.
that's where that term comes from. So both of my car accidents, one, a huge insight into the medical industry, pharmaceutical industry, health industry. I've transformed so many different perspectives in this world
Yeah.
because of those 2 incidences, as well as interaction with other people. I
Yeah.
learned to learn about people in general.
Yeah.
Because when your whole life changes and what you feel validates you changes, then you're in this search of who am I? And so it totally opened up a lot of learning and transforming for me
Yeah.
in both those incidences, and I was able to help a lot of people.
Yeah.
So how do you transform? How do you look at something half full instead of half empty? And how do you make the best? What are you learning from every experience in life? And so both of those were huge learning experiences for me. And then
Can you go into the details of what happened in the accident? Is that okay
Yeah,
for you?
sure,
I would
yeah.
love to hear like how serious they were because they obviously resulted in you being in a wheelchair and just, you know, me being a personal injury attorney, I'm actually interested in
Yeah.
what happened and what your injuries were.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
The first one I was in high school, we actually started this adventure club.
Okay.
And we needed permission slips to go on a outing.
Okay.
And we didn't get them. So
Yeah.
the officers of the club, and I was VP, we decided, well, they can't tell us what to do on the weekend, so we're just going to go anyway.
Okay.
So when we were going to pick out the tour, sites that we were going to go on and come back, get permission slips, and then go on this with the school.
Yeah.
And so on the way up there, we had a great camping outing, and we were coming back down the mountain, and it was a 2-lane highway, and I just told everyone to put their seatbelts on, and the driver was trying to pass a car around a corner, and there was like a 1,200-foot drop to one side and the mountain to the other on the 2-lane highway, and he went around a corner to pass the car. There was a car coming head on, so he swerved to miss that car, hit the mountainside. That was the side that I was on.
Yeah.
And did about 5 flips. Remember them very vividly, just like the movie, slow motion, and so 5 flips, and then unfortunately hit the railing and went off the cliff. And luckily there was an embankment, I don't know, 20, 30 feet. It had to be less than 100. And we landed on an embankment before flipping 1,200 feet, which again, I think just a series of these moments in my life are just unbelievable. So we stopped there.
You fell 1,200 feet?
No, there was embankment.
Okay.
Like 30 feet probably down. It was less than 100 feet.
So you landed in this embankment, which saved your guys' lives?
100%.
100%.
Yeah. So they climbed up the mountain.
Holy shit.
And got help. I was stuck in the car
Yeah.
because it landed on my side too.
Yeah.
So I'm stuck in the car. Helicoptered, airlifted, cut out of the car, airlifted to intensive care.
My God.
And they said I'd never walk again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What an insane experience. I mean, that has to be one of the most intense accidents I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
And it's just absolutely wild. Well, first of all, thank God that you survived. Most people in something like that don't get to walk out of the accident.
No, not at all.
So, I mean, you obviously had some other things that you had to do on this planet and some people you had to inspire.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely good. Do you remember the whole accident? Because I know for me, every accident I've ever been in, there's this moment of slow motionness that the moment you hit that impact, everything just slows down.
Completely slow.
And you're just like, oh,
Is this happening?
no, what is happening? And then as soon as it stops, everything just like speeds up again.
Yes.
And so I couldn't imagine 5 flips. That would be like living multiple eternal lifetimes.
But then off the cliff.
Yeah, and
so
then
you,
off the
you
cliff.
can relate to that, the feeling
Yeah.
of there. And then I remember hitting that railing
Yeah.
and like, oh shit.
Oh, shit.
And then going down, and then you think you're falling 1,200 feet.
Yeah.
So just that emotion of,
You probably were like, I might die right now.
Yeah, exactly. Oh no, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
Right now. I remember those thoughts filtered through my head.
And you had a
multiple
car full of
times.
people the whole time?
There's 5 of us in the car.
5 of
yeah.
us. Oh my
so
God.
between there screaming, like everything it comes back often, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
then
And thank you also for reliving this. I know that emotionally it's not easy to do that. And I just want to say I'm proud of you for doing the work to be able to even have the conversations like this. Because a lot of times when you bring up severe traumas like this, just even going back there can be very triggering. So I want to say thank you for sharing because, stories like this is just always be careful. You never know what's going to happen. Drive carefully, especially like when you're in these windy roads with these drops, like whether you're going to like Ortega Highway or you're driving up to Big Sur, like remember an instant and a moment, it's not worth it to pass someone. Just drive slow. You're not in a hurry. You have all the time in the world or you're going to have no time left on this planet. And that's very real too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was trying to hurry home to his girlfriend. So
Yeah.
and I'm glad you brought that up because that's exactly what it was. It was just this simple wrong judgment and error for something that wasn't worth it that changed 5 people's lives.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, the flipping off and then the helicopter sound. It was so loud and I still
So
hear
loud.
that sound constantly in my head.
Yeah.
So that was the first accident.
Were you
and-
still like in consciousness when they were pulling you out of there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
but luckily
amazing.
not a lot of pain then. It was just the adrenaline. and
Yeah,
being
you're
in
so
pain
high
that-
on adrenaline. There's no
and that
way.
I was just grateful I'm alive
Yeah.
when they were pulling me out because I thought after
Yeah.
we flipped, I thought we fell the whole 1,200 feet.
Yeah.
So I really thought that was
Yeah.
it. you
Yeah.
know?
What were the injuries to your
So
spine?
I damaged in the first accident, 2 vertebrae in my neck, 3 in my low back.
Okay.
I had similar to a stroke because the impact, so bleeding in my spinal cord and my brain.
Yeah.
And fractured my humerus, dislocated my shoulder,
Yeah.
hip injury, knee injury.
Yeah.
So yeah. it was
You had
kinda-
so many spine injuries. I'm like shocked because I deal with a lot of brain injury clients. You're perfectly cognitive from what I can tell. Obviously, you probably know if there's a difference before the accident, after. Is there a difference? Yeah, got it. So like that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. You might see Tracy and she looks gorgeous. She's smart. She's very coherent. But you see, Tracy knows that before this accident, her brain might have functioned, let's say 150%, which would be more than an average person. But then after the accident, maybe she's down just functioning 100%, which is what a normal person functions.
Yes.
And so a lot of people don't, if you can't see the injury, a lot of people have no
you're
idea.
okay.
They think you're okay. But you guys don't understand that she's been effed up for life. And it's really painful, and it's hard for that person to understand and swallow. And also, like, as an attorney, explaining that to an insurance company, or just trying to explain to people, yeah, she might look fine and she might be okay, but she was not, she was a different person before this happened. And so, yeah, this is a prime example of this.
What you just
moment.
said touched my heart, and
Yeah.
you're a phenomenal attorney, because just that one thing right there that you picked up immediately is exactly what people's lives change forever.
Yeah.
And you don't see it. I always say when I speak all the time, we all have a disability, mine's just not visible.
Yeah.
So you may see one thing with me right now, but you don't know what I go through. Behind the scenes. So
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like, I'm getting emotional just like thinking about it now, because
Thank
like
you.
no, it's tough, because these injuries, when you shear your axioms in your brain and you literally tear like all these neural fibers, they don't heal. You can create new ones, but they're gone.
Yep.
And so when they're gone, like, insurance companies try to downplay the severity of the injury to the person, and the only way that you can really show the severity of the injury is you have to have like the mother, the father, the family members explain, no, she was like, she would do this is how she was before, and this is the differences now. And you have to hope that a jury is not going to just look at you and be like, you know what, she's pretty, she's smart, she's fine, and then give her nothing because they can't see the injury. And that's really the biggest part of the journey when you're trying to explain this stuff. And in this situation, I never even asked you, was this like a case where the driver had good insurance or anything like that, or was it just like this mess because there was so severe of injuries to everyone, there wasn't enough money?
Combination. And he actually, because of, I'm not supposed to say who he is, because of he was an actor. So he had attorneys. This was high school, so he had all of the studio attorneys and all that kind of stuff. And so, and that was the time my mom was cancer and 3 kids when I was in high school. So we were living in a studio by ourselves. So the economic disparity in that whole situation was horrible, and the ignorance, just not knowing what to do. And so I think a lot of people don't know what to do. Unfortunately, they don't know who to call. And again, goes into my passion of what I do today, because that situation could have probably been handled completely different.
100%. People just don't understand the resources available. A lot of people don't even know that they can call a personal injury attorney and it costs them nothing to do so. They think that it costs $400 to talk to a lawyer. And so a lot of, especially
Out
like
of consciousness.
Yeah. And so a lot of people that are specifically indigent, and I'm using the word indigent, meaning like if you make under a certain amount of money, you're just literally terrified of lawyers.
Correct.
You don't have the time, you don't have the money to speak to them, and just the thought of picking up the phone is scary as hell. So I can imagine maybe if you guys were in a similar situation, just not having the knowledge, and it would have been a very painful process. Yeah.
And we had the minimum insurance on our side, so being underinsured is something that people should learn about and all that stuff as well. So.
And were you in a wheelchair after this first accident?
I was in a wheelchair.
Okay.
And they said, so many stories. They said I wouldn't walk. You're never gonna walk again. All of that stuff. They wanted me to use a electric wheelchair. Tried that for like a week in school, and I was the cool kid where everyone got on my lap and I would drive them around, and in class.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to get a manual wheelchair so I could actually use it like as therapy.
Yeah, get strength.
Yeah, and it was really hard if you're paralyzed on one side trying to get a wheelchair in a car.
Yeah.
Wheelchairs were heavy, and
of course.
that and the different car that fit. There were so many obstacles. To do that, but. I talked them into letting me try out for soccer. I had to get releases for all this stuff, and I was still in my chair where they said I wouldn't walk again. But I had to get releases to do everything, and sure enough, I did, and I ended up walking by the end of that year, which was phenomenal.
That's
and
awesome.
I still hold records at my high school today in track and field.
Were your legs not working at all?
Left side.
Got it.
Think of hemiplegic.
What was that process like, just willing your body to move again?
Frustrating, and you have to have a lot of vision and a lot of mind power, a lot of faith.
And this is all in high school.
Yeah.
And you had that at that age.
Well, dealing with my mom's cancer.
I'm sure it made you very strong.
And that's why I try to tell people everything that's happening in life is happening for a reason. You may not understand it. It may not be now. It may be for somebody else, maybe for you. But in that process, if my mom didn't teach me how to pay bills and do all that stuff at that age when she passed after I graduated, I would not know how to live, right?
Yeah.
And then watching her, we would go to chemotherapy and therapy together in our wheelchairs, So having that process in rehab with my mom going through her cancer, we related. So I always tell people, find people that have had the same experiences that you've had, because they can relate better than people that don't. They may have empathy for you, but they don't understand. Unless you've been through it, you don't really understand.
Yeah.
And then everyone's journey is different. So even if you've lost a kid and I've lost a kid, that relationship is different. And so I try to tell people not to compare anything as well because each person's journey is different. So
Yeah.
it was hard. I went to therapy like 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And then helped my mom with her cancer,
Yeah.
and then raised my 3 brothers and sisters, and then went to 2 jobs, and so it was a lot on my plate at a very young age. Yeah.
I remember one of my friends, he had a stroke like I think 20 years ago too, and he was completely paralyzed on one side of his body too. And he said he remembered the process of learning to teach himself to use his hands and his fingers was like trying to grasp sand that just kept falling through his fingers and moving one grain of sand across the beach, one piece at a time, and he had to move the whole beach to the other side. And it was just this like multiple year process of trying to get things to work again. And I remember the way he told me this analogy. It was
Great.
like,
I'm having flashbacks just from that visualization.
Yeah, it's just like
the
one
first
thing.
accident wasn't as bad for me as the second one.
Okay.
Because I actually healed very fast in
retrospect.
And what they were, what their prognosis was.
Yeah. And so did you gain full functionality back? Were you running and you were playing sports again?
I won Miss Fitness LA 94 after my accident in 91.
No shit. Good job. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, but then 5 years later,
yeah,
hit and run car accident.
Yeah.
And that left me in the wheelchair again for 11 years.
Yeah.
So if you compare a year, less than a year in one and then 11 years in another.
Yeah.
That process was hard. And I literally, the goal was to move your finger 1/4 of an inch.
Yeah.
So imagine those steps, those integrals of, and then if you do that, big deal. Like to keep your mind knowing that was a positive progress just because you could twitch your thumb.
Yeah.
Which sometimes probably was an involuntary twitch, right? Not even something I had control over.
When you had that disparity when your left side wasn't working, have you noticed that as you became an adult now with all these issues, are your muscles like even, or do you find that the left side is weaker than your right side? I don't know if that's a weird question.
No, it's not weird. After the first accident, actually, it was stronger. Okay. And then after the second accident, it is still weaker.
Okay. Yeah. Got it. And then so with the second accident, what happened there?
I was traveling to audition for modeling. And it was like 2 a.m. because I was coming back home. I don't remember exactly. Yeah, long-term memory.
Yeah,
it's part of the injury.
Yeah.
And there was a car coming. It was raining. There was a car coming across all 4 lanes of traffic, and I saw it.
Yeah.
But it was raining, and so I braked as much as I could. The vehicle still hit the front of my car, which caused me to 360 and hit the center divider head on. And then I landed facing oncoming traffic. And luckily, somebody that was going to hit me pulled off and came back on the freeway and parked with their hazards in front of me, which still is dangerous in the rain on the freeway, and called 911. And by the time they got there, they left. So I don't even know who that person was. So if you're listening, thank you.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that saved my life, and that the fact I couldn't get out of the car because I was trying to get out of the car, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed.
Yeah.
And I think if I would have got off on the freeway, I would have gotten hit for sure.
Yeah. And what I will say is thank God for Good Samaritans, for sure. For anybody that is a Good Samaritan, do it in the safest way possible.
Yeah.
That's my piece of advice to you, because I had a friend when I was younger, they got out to be a Good Samaritan and they should have pulled the person to on the other side of the vehicle, not still on the freeway side. And then a truck came and killed both of them.
No.
So be a wise Good Samaritan, because people are not paying attention, especially on the freeway, especially if it's raining. Just be smart, because these things can happen, and then a tragedy can turn into a great tragedy.
Exactly.
Really bad.
No, that was risky even what he did. And so
it's awesome that he took his time to do that. And to help you out. Yeah. And so when you came to from this accident, just was nothing working, or just like what exactly were your injuries?
So I re-damaged the vertebrae I damaged in my first accident, added 2 more in my upper spine and 3 more in my lower spine.
What spine surgeries have you had?
I actually haven't. They told me 50% chance to be quadriplegic.
You haven't had one surgery?
Yep. Quadriplegic if I would have
awesome.
It. And I was hemi.
Yeah.
So I could still scoot on the ground with one hand, and I could move one hand. And for me, that was, I'd done it before.
Yeah.
So I was a little cocky too, because I said, I've been through this. I didn't think it would be 11 years.
No, but that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's not a bad thing. God was prepping you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when they gave me the prognosis that it was possible that 50% that I would be a quad.
Because you're in great shape at this point.
Yeah, I was like, no, I'm not going to risk it. So I just did a lot of
if you had the surgery, they would have had 50% chance. Yeah, that's very real. So a lot of people don't realize too, if you have a fusion, for anybody out there considering a fusion, my advice, don't do it.
No, I agree.
Your mobility, and you're going to forever
Pain,
sever those
chronic,
muscles. And
sever.
then people don't know that when you have a fusion, so sorry, when you have a fusion surgery, they essentially are going to take your vertebrae and they're going to fuse one above and one below to the one there. And so what happens is, because these pieces of metal are in those bones, it deteriorates those bones. And then 20 years later, you have to have another one because you deteriorated those bones. And so it just keeps going up and up. And as you do that, you decrease your mobility more and more and more. And you forever, like, there's no going back from a fusion. So if you don't have to do it, or if there's an artificial disc replacement or some other surgery, do that before you do any fusion.
Yep.
Always last resort.
Completely agree with you.
Yeah. So it's, I
I feel
didn't
like you've
realize
been
it.
injured.
Yeah, right. I'm actually stoked to hear that you didn't have the surgeries and you healed naturally.
I did a little stem cell with Christopher Reeve's project.
I just did stem cells
Scale.
recently.
Yep.
Stem cells work. If you
Yep.
can afford them, get them.
Yep.
I'm literally going to do stem cells every year for the rest of my life, just because they're good for you, and they're essentially the elixir of life, and they're just something that you can do to help heal your injuries and just improve cognitive function. And so it's all really good. If anybody needs a stem cell person, please let me know. I'd be happy to connect you. And even I'm sure that you have a great person that you'd be able to connect to too.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And nothing against, you can cut this out if you want or whatever you want to do, but the FDA here limits a lot of stuff, so some things out of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. My theories on the government here is that they want us to stay sick, and they want us to stay messed up, and they want us to be addicted to painkillers. And because they can't make money if we're not sitting at home sick buying things from our computers all day long. If we went outside, looked at sunshine, and got away from our screens, okay.
Yeah.
There was this quote that I read the other day which made me sick, and it was like this Instagram post where it was like, it feels so nice to relax in front of my giant screen after spending 8 hours looking at my medium-sized screen, and I get to finally relax in my bed staring at my tiny screen as I fall asleep. So it was just this like sickening moment of realization that that's it.
That is the truth, though, for a majority of Americans.
Yeah, that's it. We just stare at screens all day, don't go outside, don't get sunshine. You're basically disconnecting yourself from the world. You're not getting the natural, like vitamin D is such a huge deficiency in human beings, but we should be just getting it by going outside every single day. And that's like one of the number one supplements that we have to balance with because we're not getting enough sunshine.
Yep.
Yeah. And like,
and even the amounts they tell you if you go to the doctor is still not even what you really should have. And so they're still not even prescribing the amount of medicine or vitamins that you should have. So
yeah, I mean, think about it. We're all animals. We were supposed to be outside every single day getting plenty of sunshine, but instead we then put these chemicals to block the sunshine from getting on our body, which is then giving us cancer because these chemicals are not good for you. And then you're like, I don't know. It's this whole like,
that's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Yeah, it's a whole nother rabbit hole.
So yes, do things here, do what you can. And if you really have an issue, explore other other options as well.
Well, I'm just so proud of you because this is crazy, like going through both these accidents and the severity of your injuries and the fact that you're walking, you're moving, you're able to work out. And like, I guess, what is the full extent of like what your current just injuries are? Is it just like you have a slight hip issue or like?
Yeah, my hip and my knee still give out because like you said, things don't heal. They're forever damaged. So you're rerouting and your muscles have memory. And so they're doing those things, but sometimes it doesn't fire. And so literally it won't move. Yeah. And so I've fallen. And it's not worth the fall on the injury for me. So I can take steps now without my crutch, which is absolutely amazing. But I just don't know. It's not consistent enough to do it without it.
Got it. So basically, it's like a computer. There's a short circuit, and just your leg will give out randomly. But otherwise, you pretty much are good to go.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good work. That's not something easy, and I think a lot of it has to do with your state of mind, because. So I have a lot of clients that I love you, but some of you drive me insane, and. It's because they don't have a good mindset. And the thing is, your mind controls everything. And if you are literally just waiting for this settlement or you're waiting for a case to feel better, you need to just start feeling better and going down that road. And don't worry about the money. But like some people, their whole identity becomes, woe is me. Yeah. I'm a victim of this accident. I'm never going to recover. I'm never going to feel better. And then you're not.
Correct.
You will not feel better. And you will not. And like I have one client right now, he's an angel. He's in one of the worst accidents I've ever seen. Car flipped over. He's blind in one eye. He got 6 surgeries already. He's had a fusion. But he's just like, I'm gonna get better. I don't care. And he was paralyzed on one side too, and he's already walking and talking. So it's like, Your mind controls everything. If you're not in a positive mindset, you're not going to get better. So I'm proud of you for having that positive mindset, because I'm sure it affects everything, and this is why you've had so much success.
Yeah, and that's back to even the current thing that I do now. It's been 23 years of personal development, and unfortunately, people in society they're not taught personal development. That should be in high school, and I think, and so people don't even know that that it is their mind. They just think this is what it is, and so kind of like the priced out of the legal system, people working on themselves. It's a taboo to have a therapist. I think everyone should have one. It's taboo to have something wrong with you, those kind of things, because everyone's in this Instagram society of what they should look like or do or what is successful. And so for all your clients, I think some of them sometimes don't even know that they have that problem. We don't know what we don't know unless we intentionally focus on becoming better.
Yeah. No, so I agree with you entirely. Yeah, what a wild journey. And so you ended up being Miss America.
Yep.
What made you, first of all, want to do Miss America?
Okay.
And what was that process like? I mean, I don't know much about the pageant. I've seen, obviously on TV, not obviously, there's nothing obvious, but I saw on TV, Miss Universe and all that stuff. Is it you'd be Miss America and then you'd go to Miss Universe, or how does that all work?
There's two separate pageants. So there's a USA and America.
Okay.
And so Universe and America are
Universe
different.
and America.
Yeah,
Okay, got
so,
it. Yeah.
Just two different pageant systems, I guess.
Yeah.
Some people think some are better than the others, but it is what it is.
Why do you think that is? Just because of the results or whatever, or politics behind it?
Yeah, I think so mostly. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I encourage anyone to go through the process because it's more than what people think. It's not just an image and beauty.
Yeah.
How I actually got into Miss America was Miss Black California, and I was a tomboy. I modeled because they gave me the check. It wasn't because I wanted to be a model, but I wasn't going to turn down the money. And I was at a conference in Las Vegas, and somebody came and gave me a card, and they said, "Do you want to compete in Miss Black California?" And I'd never, even like you said, I didn't know much about pageants.
Yeah.
So I went home and I started looking through the pageant website, and it was asking me all these profound questions about philanthropy and government affairs and stuff I honestly didn't know about, or I never really took that much time to think about. And it was inspiring. What is your what are your passions? What are your whys? Certain things that no one ever asked me, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to do it, and I went to ask a few of my friends.
Yeah.
And one of my friends, I was in my wheelchair at the time, said, "Well, you can't compete against able-bodied people, but there's a Miss Wheelchair California." And that just pissed me off.
Yeah.
Don't tell me I can't do something, because then I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And so I decided to compete, and that experience and that pageant and that director, I think really the pageant was a facade of what she really wanted to do. She wanted to empower people, educate people, get them to give back to their communities. Her mission was just the after. That was the result of it. And that pageant.
So you're saying she wanted to do that, or you're saying, okay, got it.
Exactly.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, it wasn't about the pageant for her.
Did
she really
make
was.
your life difficult because you were in a wheelchair, or did she make it easier for you?
I'm the same as everybody else, and that's what I wanted. So I learned all the dances in my
that's
chair.
fair. That's the way it should be.
Exactly. There was no special treatment. My wheelchair ended up breaking in the middle of this pageant. It's months, right? Because you have to do all these things. And I'm getting a welder in the middle of the pageant to weld my chair. And it was crazy. Yeah. But in that.
Were you able to walk at this time?
No, I was in my wheelchair. So that was the first able-bodied pageant that I won in a wheelchair. And I'm the first person to do that. So that was kind of cool. And of course, all the girls were nice to me before because they felt sorry for me.
Yeah.
And then when I won, then it was like, oh, she won because of her wheelchair.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you that question. I'm like, did you feel that people felt that way, that you won because you're in a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
got it.
Which was annoying, but
of course. But also, there's something to say about this. Well, I'll say it is. It's just there's also such a bravery in the fact that you're willing to go up there in a wheelchair when everybody is looking at you and judging you and being like, what's this girl doing here?
Yeah.
So, I know you as an individual, and I know you're not doing it to try to get the advantage on these girls. You were going in to win this competition because you felt you deserved to win it.
100%.
So you definitely deserve to win it. And for those individuals that judged you, they're just projecting their own insecurities onto you. And, that's their journey to figure out too. Yeah. And it's just wild. And listening to you, I don't think I would have had the bravery to go up there in a wheelchair and try to win a pageant. Yeah. And it's cool.
It's difficult, but it was inspiring. And I think that is one of my callings in life, is to impact the world, to leave a legacy, to create and open up paths for people for after me, and if nobody is willing to do that uncomfortable thing, then
Yeah.
you don't lift the lid for somebody else. And
Got it.
so it's always inspired me to in everything that I do. It's small little
Yeah.
things that you do. How you do little things is how you do everything, right? So,
Yeah. The way you do anything is the way you do everything.
yeah. And so I've always tried to. What ways can I make it better for the next generation?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So in a pageant, what are the three, like, I know there's multiple parts to it. There's like a question part, there's
Interview,
interview talent.
Evening gown, swimsuit. What else is there?
What was your talent?
So long ago. I sang.
You sang.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could sing.
I can't. That was like voice lessons forever, just
Yeah.
to get one song down so I
Gotcha.
could win, and I won talent. So that's
Nice.
pretty cool.
That's awesome. What was the song you sang?
Hero, Whitney Houston.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love Whitney.
Yeah.
She crushes. That's
What was your
rad.
favorite artist?
Who's my favorite artist? Singer?
That's kind of a hard question if you like music, but
Oh man, that's a really tough one for me. You know who I really, really like?
who's inspired you lately? Is that easier?
I like Ed Sheeran a lot.
Okay. Yeah.
Ed Sheeran has this like just feel good vibe to him. He sings like this little angel. I've also seen him, and he just like he's on stage and he's just serenading with you with the guitar, and
Yeah.
he just like it's him and his music, and he's just like really getting after it. But I do like a lot of like love songs and like ballads. So I like Bruno Mars a lot because he's a complete showman,
Yeah.
and he's absolutely rad. So I mean, it's a very random question because I also listen to like a lot of house music, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I like this guy named Troy Boy. So it's a wide range, wide range of different things.
What's the last concert you went to?
I went to Troy Boy this last
Troy Boy,
weekend.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I went this last weekend. It was absolute blast. He plays like he would be if like hip hop became house music.
Oh.
Would be like a nice way of saying it.
Okay.
So I really like it.
Yeah.
And he's good. And what about you? Who else inspires you?
Music-wise,
Yeah.
I'm eclectic. Anything, unfortunately, but country. Some countries.
I'm not huge on country myself too.
huge,
But that's
yeah.
okay. God bless those
Yeah,
people that are
exactly.
into it. You know? I pray for you and I hope that you like it. It's just not for me.
It's probably only. I mean, anything from, all different genres.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm a big oldies person.
Yeah.
My dad didn't let me listen to anything but oldies until I was 18 years old. So I'm like always when I'm like hanging out with friends and I'm like DJing, I'm throwing on like Elvis and like all the old stuff. It's just like that's what resonates with my soul, and it was honestly such a gift because when I started listening to rap and some of the stuff when I was younger, I was like, this is really bad. Like this is garbage.
Right.
Who are your parents? Or I guess some of them don't know their parents, right? So it's like, why are you saying this out
These
loud to
things,
the world?
right, yeah.
So yeah, for me, I was luckily sheltered at the time. I hated it,
Yeah.
but I was blessed also just to hear that good stuff because what you consume, you become.
100%.
And so I was listening to positive, feel good music my whole youth. And so that stuff just like resonated. K Earth 101, if you remember that radio
I
station.
do.
Yeah. And that was pretty much what we listened
That
to
was my
all the
parents
time.
too, so, yeah.
And so it was really good for the soul and very nurturing. And even like now, it's funny when they do like the Spotify wrap up, it's showing all the songs and stuff. That I listen to. It's all like oldies cover songs and
Yeah.
stuff. And it's just like all this feel good music. Because even in the morning, I have a playlist that I call Grand Rising, which is just like, it's all like positive mantra songs, grateful songs about positivity. And because like, that's how I feel I should start my day every day.
Right.
And what you listen to is a direct correlation to the type of person you are and the type of person you will become because you literally consume that all day long.
You do.
Yeah, so it's important to filter what's going into your mind and your soul at all times because music hits you in a vibrational frequency which literally will change you as an individual. So it's important to make sure you're consuming what's good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very true. I read a book one time. It was about your subconscious mindset and
Yeah.
how many no's you get told and all that kind of stuff and positive and, putting positive in your brain. And one of them was, do you know what color a yield sign is?
Yellow.
Yeah, that's what you think, right?
Yeah.
They changed them over 30 years ago.
Oh,
Yield signs are red and white.
are they?
And
Got
so
it.
you'll
That's
go,
funny.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So you'll go around life on this
Yeah.
autopilot of what you put in it.
Yeah.
And you like, have you ever driven home and you're like, how did I get here, right? Because it's the
Yeah.
autopilot. So very true. What you put in your mind definitely comes out, and you don't even realize that it's processing that way.
Yeah.
And so that was
Yeah.
interesting. That reminded me of that. But
Yeah. No, thank you for that explanation.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then my mom wouldn't let me watch MTV. She wouldn't. So when you say
Yeah.
that you were sheltered, I definitely was. And
Yeah.
I think it's a better thing because I tried to not do that with
Yeah.
my children and teach them
Yeah.
that positive things in your mind,
Yeah.
come out. and they're still listening to the rap music. So
Yeah, I mean that you can do the best you can, you know.
one of them is eclectic. One of them has both
Yeah,
the old school, but
yeah,
the other one.
but it's as long as you can like just offer that up to them, right? And at the end of the day, I think allowing them to make a choice. And I know when I have kids one day, I definitely want to speak to them like an adult, even from the day they're
My
born.
mom did that.
Not be babying them, and that's like my mom definitely. I would ask her so many questions, and she would always baby me and give me these answers, which were not the right answers. And my dad would just speak to me like an adult since I was a child, because I just want the answer.
Right.
Because even if your kid might not understand, they can energetically feel what you're saying.
Yes.
And that's like a big part of just like even when somebody is talking to you about a complex topic that you might understand, you can feel what they're saying though.
Yeah.
And that's the same way I think it is with children. And so I want to talk to them that same way so that they can feel that vibration from me and just being honest with them at all times.
Yeah. Definitely something I miss from my mom. She did the same thing.
Yeah.
Adult, always. And she didn't have to give me a curfew. I came home because I respected her. And it grew in time because of the way she treated me from a very young age.
Yeah. And the more you put trust, I think, in people, the more they're going to live up to your expectations. A quote from Aubrey Marcus at one of the summits that he said was, trust them and they become trustworthy.
Yep.
But if you don't trust someone, sure, they're going to become untrustworthy. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like, give people an opportunity. I think that most people will live up to it. And if they don't, they're going through something that's so painful and so hurtful that they need to learn the hard way.
Right.
And that's also not your job to teach them. They have to learn the way that they need to learn.
Yep.
And growing up, I used to always joke that I had to learn something painfully 3 times for me to learn. First 2 times, I'd be like, whatever. Second time, you know, it's not a big deal. And then third time, like, nope. Okay, I'm gonna make a change now. That sucked, and for me, usually it would have to hit my wallet. And if it hit my wallet and it cost me a lot of money and was painful in that way, I would make the change. But everybody has their own process.
Have you changed that now, so you don't have to go through 3
now
times?
I'm
okay, good.
2 times maybe, but now I'm pretty good about 1 time.
Okay.
Yeah, but it took a long time to get there. A lot of painful processes to go through that.
For sure.
Yeah. And so we talked about Miss America. So it sounds like you were on a lot of TV shows. I didn't even know you did a lot of acting. So 2 questions. One is, when acting, what was your favorite TV show you worked on? And what did you learn from all the acting?
Believe it or not, I was really insecure when I was young. And so...
yeah, what ages did you do this?
Like 15, 16.
Oh, very young.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I learned improv, like, to answer right off the bat, which helped me with my insecurity because I couldn't think about it and prepare.
Yeah.
I was really good if I could prepare, learn all the lines. But when you go in for like a commercial interview or something like that, you get it usually right then, and you have to produce right away. So I learned how to be present. I learned how to not care what people think. I learned that even if you're good, it may not be. They may not pick you. So that, like, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, or talent's in the eye of the beholder. So
it's very subjective.
Exactly. I couldn't let other people dictate my value, right? And I learned to have fun. I learned about passion. I love to perform. So I think all of that I now put into my current career. So yeah, it was fun. I made great relationships. I have friends that will be lifelong friends from that industry, and I still do some. So it's been a great thing that it's an outlet for me to. I think we all have different, even though we may do something, we all have different avenues that make us who we are. And so I'm able to still have that entertainment side in my life, which is fun.
Yeah, there's a lot that comes from acting, right? Just being on stage in front of people. I didn't do anything major like this, but I just remember there were so many lessons just from being in front of people, the repetition of getting comfortable with yourself and being able to share that story, and also just jumping into someone else's shoes, because that's I think one of the greatest talents in life is if you can get into someone else's shoes and understand their perspective. And a small way of doing that is when you're acting, having to be someone else and then think about what their thoughts would have been, how they would have felt if you decided to go that deep into it. But for me, I remember being younger and being like, what would this person think?
Yeah.
How would they feel? What is the weird face they would make?
Yes.
Did they have a quirk? You know what I mean? Like, these are all the things that I was like feeling. So there was a lot of lessons from the very limited acting that I did when I was younger.
And a lot of negatives side of it too, the partying and the drugs, and which I didn't do, but that I saw a lot of it.
Yeah.
So there was that fun party side of it too.
Yeah. Did you get invited to a lot of the parties?
Yeah.
Even at that age?
Yeah.
Yeah, got it.
I was getting in clubs before I was legally able to get into them.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's a blessing too. I got all that out of the way really early.
Yeah, very young.
And so didn't need to do much of it later.
Yeah, who were some of the top famous people that you met? And my question is, do you find that they were kinder or meaner as they got more famous?
I don't think fame necessarily has much to do with it. I think it's the person.
Just who they are as an individual.
And I think you become more of what you are
Yeah.
when you're there. I met incredible celebrities that are just so down to earth. Some of the ones I recommended to you that
Yeah.
didn't change with whatever stardom that
Yeah.
they had, and some that I honestly think they were that way before they became a celebrity. And
Got
so
it.
I wouldn't blame it on the industry. I would blame it on the person.
Yeah.
And people need to take responsibility for their own selves and grow, kind of like your last phone call, right? People are
Yeah.
just going to be who they are.
Some people are just who they are. Yeah. And that's like also part of the journey too, is like feeling into whether it's my job to maybe try to help this person or just understanding that no matter what I do, I can't help this person.
That's one of the lessons I learned from my mom. You can't fix the
Yeah.
whole world, because I wanted
Yeah.
to when I was little. I
Yeah.
wanted to make everything better and help
Yeah.
everybody. And
Yeah.
I can do my part, and that
Yeah.
hopefully will have a ripple effect.
Yeah.
But
we can try.
exactly.
Yeah, and it's also just like understanding. I think a big part for me is like I used to try to force things onto people a lot when I was growing up and try to like explain my perspective all the time and tell people how to be and do this and do that. And then one of my friends, when I was in a journey in Lake Como, she said, Joe, just stop explaining your perspective and just be your perspective.
Yeah.
And it's like just people will see through your journey. And then also too, like if people want to learn or if they have a question or if they need something from you, they'll ask. Yeah. And you have to wait for them to ask.
Ask or ask them for permission.
Exactly.
One of the
Either
two.
or.
Yeah.
Either one. And that's also just part of you following your intuition of knowing what is the right thing at that moment.
Yeah.
And then also just understanding that like this conversation I had right before I walked in here, God himself could have not gotten through this person. Just they were angry, they were yelling. I've never even spoken to this person before, and just like I can't fix this trauma.
Right.
It's just like they need Jesus or something. I don't know what they need, but I was not the solution for this individual. And
Knowing when to say no and stopping too.
yeah, and knowing when to stop. And like like what we were discussing is like I could keep fighting with this person over the next 6 months over a couple $1,000s. Or I can just understand that God has blessed me and I'm going to be fine. And the amount of time and energy that it would take for me to fight this person over a couple $1,000, or I can just say, here, enjoy. I hope that this helps wash whatever karma you're going through and whatever you really need it from, because you obviously really need this.
Right.
And it's just not worth my time and energy to, prove a point or to fight this, because I have more important things in my life that my time and energy needs to be directed to.
Yep.
And that also only comes through wisdom and age and just getting wiser. Because a couple of years ago, I would have been like,
Fighting.
no way am I going to give
Not
you
gonna
this
take
money.
it.
Yeah, no, screw you. I'm going to fight this till the day I die to prove
Yeah.
a point to you. But it's just not worth it.
No.
You wake up every day with a certain amount of energy. And like the more busy and the more successful I get, I just like, it's like I don't have extra time to waste it on
Nope.
people that are, I call them vampires, right? They just
They'll
like
steal. People
they
steal
literally
everything
just
from you if you let them.
suck it, and,
Yeah.
and they just like pull it out of you, and I'm just like, dude, I don't have time for you. Here, just skedaddle. Screw you. Goodbye. And so yeah, it's once again, that didn't just happen probably till
No,
this
a lot
last
of
year.
work.
I've had a lot of mentors, and like even like I was calling one of my mentors about this case where this client just like they just wanted me to give up so many of my fees because they felt they were entitled to it, and I was like, I'm gonna go through it. I need to prove a point just so I don't get taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And literally, my mentor is like, Joe, you're not poor. You're doing great. Just move on with your life. Just
Right.
give them the money, because like also I kind of like have had a conversation with like God and through my prayers and stuff. If somebody asks for a certain amount of money and they really need it, I should give, because I have, and because that's also part of like just like growth and helping people. If they really need it that badly and they're coming to you asking for a specific amount,
Yeah.
it means that they really need this.
Yeah.
People don't usually do that unless they're going through something really tough. And so that's part of the journey of like understanding how money works in the universe. And the more you let it flow out of your hands, the more it comes back. And it's this loop.
Giving
And
get tenfold.
yeah, but like doing it with an open heart is the thing that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
And that's been part of my journey. But when somebody usually comes to me with a specific ask, I'm happy to help, because that's literally what they needed.
Right.
And I want to help them with whatever they're going through.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. It's been a wild journey. Yeah.
That's profound.
Yeah.
A lot of people, it takes a long time to get to that.
Yeah.
And when you put so much value on that piece of paper, people make different decisions as well. So
For sure. Yeah. I had to have a reflection by my brother recently showing me how I valued money more than my family in some aspects. And it was a very painful process for me to go through. And he showed it to me in a very painful way. And he was 100% right that I did value money more than my own relationships and stuff. And I put it on this pedestal. And so I broke through it. It was a very, very painful process of having to relive a lot of like childhood traumas and just understanding, like, you know, it was like, my mom, God bless her soul, because she came from such extreme poverty. Like she had 8 brothers and sisters. I've been to their home in Jordan in the Middle East. They literally lived in a room, a giant room. They raised rabbits in the back and they killed rabbits for meat. And that's literally how they got their meat. And they just all lived in this one tiny room. And that's just it. And that's how they spent their life as children. And so for her, no matter how much money we had growing up,
never enough.
We don't have enough. We need to make sure we're saving. We need to make sure, but we had everything we always needed. We never were struggling. But that's like sometimes it creeps into my psyche. And so like I have to be wary and pay attention to that it's not my reality. Money is fine in my life. I have everything I need. I'm okay. But like, just like feeling that in my core is sometimes very difficult for me. And so, yeah, sometimes I put money in a place and it shouldn't be. And so now I finally changed my values, that I value everything, you know, the relationships and everything more than money, but it just, now I have a respect for money, not that I'm putting it above everything else.
Right.
And it took a huge mental shift to get to that point.
Yeah. I can totally relate. My dad lived in a shack in Georgia with 9 brothers and sisters, and his parents both died before they graduated high school.
Wow.
So they ended up raising themselves, and they were son of sharecroppers, so they did the same thing, sharecropped, and did that. And he said, like, Christmas gift would be an apple, like that, would, you know. So again, very poor. So I have the same. I had to deal with that same thing, as well as a lot of losses. So the security thing of that money brings security, and a lot of people can interpret that as I'm materialistic, when it wasn't. It was really about not having enough and peace of mind and being secure. So I think I learned through a forum that I went to that people put stories, things that happen when you're really young. You create a story, and then that story lives with you throughout your life. And so that was a big thing for me, like you, to unpack that and then realize that. But
and it's
money is important too.
Yeah, but it's also so interesting too, because it is very important.
I mean, like
money,
therapy and my medical and food, and
but
so But
money for me, it's so important. Money's just energy.
100%.
It is, you're getting an exchange of energy for what the exchange of energy that you're giving. Because when I started looking at money, it's like it's a time thing, right? It's like, how many hours do you have to work to make this? So you're literally trading this many hours of your life for something. So it's literally an energetic exchange.
100%.
And so a lot of people get super frustrated and they're like, why are they charging so much? Where that? Because this is a high energetic exchange.
Correct.
And so you need to understand that you're raising yourself to that frequency and that vibration to be able to afford it. And it's just like what I was going to comment before. It's just so interesting because my dad also came from extreme poverty too. And his dad left him before he was born. But my dad is the most generous person. He always feels like he has enough. He's always working for enough. And he never once said that we didn't have enough growing up. And it's just so interesting how you can have similar beginnings, completely different stories. And so it created this balance in my life where, like, even though I might have this stress and be worried about money, I've always been extremely generous and like always just been willing to share with others, because my dad always taught me the more you give, the more it's going to come back to you. And even if you don't get it back to yourself monetarily, energetically and emotionally, people will love you and they'll want to support you, and that's like invaluable, and that will always be worth so much more than money at the end of the day.
Correct. And a lot of times you don't realize in that giving, it's not even, it comes back in other ways that you don't understand. That's why volunteering does so much for people and that kind of thing. Is giving back to something bigger than you. Creates that energy in the world that changes you. So
and if you don't have money to donate, you can donate time. You know, there are definitely times in your life whenever like new attorneys come to me and they're talking about starting their own firm and they're like, what do I do for marketing? I'm like, well, at points in your career, you will have more time versus money. And then at some point, you will have way more money than you'll have time. So you have to decide what you want to donate. Each are of equal value. You just have to choose what one you're able to offer up. And so, when I was younger, it's like I had a lot of time. Sure, I'll come help. Now it's like, you need money? Okay, I'll help with money. And so it's like, but each of them equal value, just different times at your life where you can really offer up. And so just understanding that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, cool. And then out of all the shows you worked on, what was your favorite? Did you like killing vampires? Did you kill vampires? Or were you a vampire? Sorry. And what was Buffy like?
Buffy was cool, actually.
Okay.
Buffy was cool. That was some of my earlier shows, so I was more background and small lines in Buffy. But the cast that was one of my favorite cast, actually.
Yeah.
It was a really cool vibe. You didn't feel like extras didn't feel like extras. Small 1-line or 2-line people didn't feel like it. I got my you have to get so many vouchers. I got one of my vouchers to get my go SAG and all that kind of stuff. So it was a pivotal time where it was one of the shows that made me think that I could act.
Yeah.
Which was kind of cool.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Cool. What a fun show. So you were a human. You weren't a vampire. Just want to clarify.
Yeah. I know.
Did you ever get to kill a vampire?
No, I didn't. Damn. Yeah.
Did you ever take one of the steaks just to keep it as like a souvenir forever, just on your shelf? All right.
I'd give it to you if I had it, though. I would. Yes.
Appreciate that. I like vampires.
I might. Let me see if I can. Oh, the shows. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah.
Who can I call to get you a stick?
Oh my God. Yes. Yes. I'm obviously like a weird like anime nerd and stuff like that. I think if I had a choice to be like some creature, I would choose to be a vampire. Okay. I would live forever. Yeah. I would do all kinds of stuff. I mean, of course, the thing is like people are like, oh, well, it sucks to live forever. Yeah, but you're a vampire. You could kill yourself at any moment. It's fine.
Right.
But I want the option.
Options. Yeah. Choices are good. Freedoms, choices, options.
Yeah, all the above.
Good.
All the above. Yeah. Okay. All right. So then you did modeling a lot, which was kind of, I feel like we've covered a lot of that, but like, was there anything specifically with the modeling that you'd want to discuss that you learned or that helped you as an individual? Because it sounds like you've been really good with your body and keeping yourself in shape.
Yeah, I think modeling health-wise, because I learned what unhealthy ways to stay, self-image and not having, there was a time when I was fat. I was never fat, but they would call me that. My agent would, and I'm like, look, I'm booking. If I stop booking, then we can talk about my weight. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that was the time when there was really wafy models and all that kind of stuff, and I didn't fall into that category. And
wafy?
Like really like anorexic type, like really thin, like I don't want to name people because
you don't have to name them. Yeah, I got it. I never heard that term before. Okay, got it. So wafy means like more like thin, like anorexic kind of looking, too much skin and stuff. But you were like more full bodied and
full body, more fit, and more in the time it wasn't fit models that wasn't in. Yeah. Right. So, but I was still booking jobs. So I love that I stayed true to myself, even in an industry that pushed people to look a certain way. Yeah. And I think that's why you were getting booked, because people could feel yourself, they feel your true intentions. You weren't trying to be something else just to like appease them. Yeah. Yeah. So I learned that. I learned about how, and then that's when I first started doing any kind of diet or anything like that, other than Miss Fitness. And Miss Fitness was a whole different look, right? Yeah. And what else I learned in modeling? You ran a bunch of news stations, you were saying. Yeah. What was that experience like? Do they just tell you what to say? Were you just promoting the pageants? Why were you on all the news? Some different careers that I've been in. So whether it was when I toured the world, I toured the historical black colleges with Andrew Young. I'm talking to high school, college kids about leadership and being in their community. So that would get me on. Or when I was Miss Fitness or Miss America or Miss Black California, I'd be on a show for that. Or when I did modeling, Extra was one of the shows, and I was able to be the host. I was like an honorary host for the show. So all different things, or even LegalShield. There was a time when we did different news shows with what was going on in America with either identity theft or legal, and so I was on for some of those. As an entrepreneur, I've been on the news on how to start your own business, and so I think throughout my life I've always used media, maybe because I came from modeling and acting. Do people reach out to you, or do you reach out to them? Both. Okay. Yeah, either someone you meet and someone refers you, or I had a publicist for many years that would reach out and try to set up those interactions. Cool. Awesome. Yeah, actually, the next guest that I have on the podcast, she's a news anchor. Oh, good. And so I'm excited to kind of pick her brain and hear about what she does, too. She's interviewed some wild people, too. Okay. She's, like, traveled the whole world, like everybody from, like, Snoop Dogg to diplomats. Yeah. So she's had an interesting career so far, and she's my age, too. So she's been going through that journey. Yeah, which has been rad. I wanted to do that for a while. So yeah. Cool. I'm happy with where I'm at, but... Yeah, I'll listen to that podcast. Yeah. She's entertaining. She's cool. She's actually somebody I've known since we were in high school. Oh, cool. Yeah, so we've like grown up, and it's been fun. So did you reach out to her? Did she reach out to you? I just reached out to her recently,
we were just like, she randomly texted me because I'd sent her a dash cam. And so
Yeah.
she was thanking me. And then I was like, dude, I'd love to get you on my podcast just to like pick your brain because she's met so many interesting people through her journey. And I just like, I mean, you know, this podcasting is honestly probably the most enriching thing in my life. And so I can imagine I want to ask her like questions of like when she's interviewing people, does she have the freedom to ask them the questions that she want, or does she have to stay very specific in her lane and she can't have opinions about things? See, for me, this is like the ultimate education.
Yeah.
And I think, man, I would love if they did like a study one day on like people who like run podcasts and like do podcasts and like their like IQs versus like just kind of like to understand the education that we're getting, because this
Right.
is a very extreme energetic exchange. But also too, like I'm paying attention more to this than I pay attention to anything my entire week. Not saying this that I'm not paying attention to my work, but like I got 3 cameras on me. My
Right.
phone's away for the first time this week.
Right.
You know, I have to listen to every single word, and especially when you're hosting the podcast, you know, it's about us, but it's about you.
Right.
And it's about learning and hearing what you have to say. And really just like there's so many social skills that have developed from me, like leading a podcast.
I was going to ask you why. I mean, that's such a dichotomy from a personal injury attorney to a podcast. How? Why?
Why? Ever since I was a kid, I always used to joke that I just want to talk for a living, because I just think that one-on-one connections is the greatest gift that we can get on the planet, because we're social beings.
For sure.
And I think, like, you know, when you speak to people, this is the best way to learn, and especially when it's on a one-on-one basis, because then you can ask all the questions that you want to.
Right.
And I also have, because of like when I got bullied a lot when I was younger, and I was always told not to ask questions. I was always told like not to be myself. And I just like have always known, and I've felt in my soul, everyone has something to offer.
Yeah.
You didn't make it throughout life without having experiences
Everyone has
and
a
things that
story.
you learn. Even if somebody might have the same opinion, they might have a twist to it that could change your life. And so because I've always like kind of been a fighter for the people that might not be the coolest, kind of the losers, the nerdy ones. And I just feel that those people also are the ones that really have the most to teach you. Yeah. And so I've always really listened to people's stories. And through that journey, I've just learned so much by being an open ear to others when others would not. And I have like a joke when I hang out with my friends, no small talk. I just like, when I'm at parties or after parties, like, you know, every once in a while I'll have a couple of drinks and I want to be a little weird and, you know, small talk. But like realistically, it's like no small talk. I just want to talk about deep things.
I'm stealing
I want to talk about where you are. I want to hear about your journey and tell me about, you know, I ask a question, like I've been dating quite a bit recently, and I like to ask like off-putting questions, and I'll just like ask a question to a girl. I'll be like, what are you most passionate about in life? What lights your soul? What ignites your fire? And I just want to hear like what comes up, because I just like, I want to hear about those things and like hearing what inspires others and what fuels you and what gets you going. And so like, you know, I get to ask these questions on a podcast, and, you know, I get to see people's faces light up. And like, the truth is like, as this person is like fueled up and they're feeling good and they're having somebody probably listen to them for the first time in a long time, I get to like help them heal through stuff. And also they're healing me, because we're sitting so close and we're exchanging energy, because everything is an exchange of energy. So it's like, this fuels me up. I fuel them up. And for me, I leave here, my battery's charged. I'm good to go for another couple of weeks, because I feel great as a person.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my brother yesterday, and my brother is like a spiritual guru. That's like what he does for a living. And he was like, Joe, you know, the people that I speak to right now, they're all suffering from loneliness. Like there's just so many people suffering from loneliness. And he was like telling me, he's like, you know, we were talking about my life and why I feel so happy. Like, you know, he's like, you're just a master networker. And, you know, for me, I don't even think it's the word networking. I'm just a master friend maker. Like, I just think even everybody in our networking groups, like, they're all my friends, you know? It's like, I think also labeling it as networking, you're almost degrading the relationship, because why can't you be a friend and do business together? Because that's what I do.
That's the best business partners are your friends.
That's the best business partner. Yeah. So it's just every person is an opportunity to make a friend. And I think that the quote that everybody always says is, I keep my circle small. I don't know what's wrong with you guys. There's 8 billion people on the planet. Why would I only hang out with 5 people? I just, like, to me, it makes 0 sense. Like, why can't you have a relationship? And I'm not saying everyone's going to be your best friend. Let's be very clear about that.
Yeah.
But why can't you be friends with everybody in the world?
Yeah.
You know, obviously there's some people you might not want to be friends with, but majority of people are good people. They have things to offer. They want to be your friend as much as you want to be their friend deep down in your soul.
Yes.
And once you can like correlate that and see that everybody's yearning for connection, everybody's yearning for love, everybody just wants to be happy and they all just want to feel loved. And I think the only way to feel loved is through connections with other people. You can love yourself, but nothing
No,
feels
we're made to be.
we're made to
social.
connect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you literally feel yourself
alone.
light up as an individual. Like, because like even I tell people when I was traveling by myself, sure, pizza and pasta was great. The opera was amazing.
Yeah.
But it was never as fun as when I had a friend
With you.
sitting with me. We laughed harder, we cried harder, we were, joking harder. Like it's just because you're literally vibrationally affecting each other,
Yes.
and it just like infects you. And
Yeah.
so it's just this wild journey to realize that everybody should be trying to connect with as many people as
And
possible.
how long have you had that feeling of friends with everyone? Was that through
Since
travel?
I was a
that
kid.
through? Oh, kid.
'Cause I remember pissing people off because people would always say to me, "You have a buddy for everything. You have too many friends. What do you mean? This is your another buddy?" Like literally people would get angry with me. I would trigger them as a kid. I'm like, why? Like, why am I making people angry
Because I like
that I'm
people.
connecting with everybody?
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. And it's specifically because I would connect with the losers.
Yeah.
And like one of my buddies would be like, "Joe, you hang out with the misfits and the losers." I'm like, those people are 1,000 times more loyal to me than every one of your friends.
Yeah.
They would die for me. They would fight for me. They would have my back in a moment. And your friends that are cool, that are awesome, they would not support you and they would not be there for you in a second. But these people would have my back every day of the week. And so it's like, the people that have struggled and been through the most, they're the ones that are the most loyal. And I've just learned at a very young age that they also have the most to offer. They are there for you more than everybody else, and they will love you more than everybody else because they've been hurt so badly. And once you like connect that with those individuals, they'll always have your back. Yeah. So I learned at a young age because I was bullied and I didn't have a lot of friends. And my nerdy friends that we sat at the nerdy table, they had my back no matter what. Nothing could get between us. Like almost like, remember the show Stranger Things? Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
Those 4 like characters, like I had friends like that.
I love it.
Like we were just like always had each other's backs no matter what. We always sat together every single day. We played Pokemon cards and stuff together, and like we would go out, hang out with each other, and we just always had each other's backs. And so
Do you still talk to them?
some of them,
Okay.
yeah. I'm working back towards creating those relationships again. I did some stupid stuff when I was younger, and probably hooked up with girls that I shouldn't have, that were like exes and
Yeah.
that type of
Yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah.
And so healing from those wounds still at this age, I've reached out to try to kind of start those relationships up again. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's been
good.
an interesting part of the journey too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was friends with all the different areas, the smoking section, the whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I was popular, but I was never popular. It was really weird
Yeah.
because I was friends with everyone.
Yeah.
And so, I was always welcome at the party, but I wasn't the one called invited.
Yeah.
I'd hear about it through something, and I would show up, and I was still there.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of value in having friends with all the groups.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I would like to maybe shift gears. I would
Okay.
like to start talking about the main reason why we're having you here today. Obviously, this has been fucking awesome. This has been a great podcast. I've had a lot of fun so far. But I want to talk about LegalShield.
Okay.
I want to talk about ID Shield.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk about one before the other?
No, they're both great, and I think they intertwine. And actually, I think it's the best identity theft protection to have both. So either one you want
Okay.
to talk about is fine.
Let's
But I do
start.
want to start. You started with the intro about people that can't afford attorneys, and I just wanted to make it clear that I have extremely wealthy, professional
That's fair.
athletes
Yeah.
that have the service. And think of it like maybe your healthcare. You
Yeah.
still are going to keep the doctor you like, so you'll still have the attorney that you like, but it
Yeah.
doesn't mean that you can't have a full coverage. And so,
Yeah.
although that is one of the reasons that I love the service is for helping the people that can't afford it.
Yeah.
It's not only for the people that can't afford it, and I have plenty of one of my business clients was using the law firm that we use at $600 an hour,
Yeah.
and then we got him the service, and he's like, "That's the law firm I use," and now he's
Yeah.
paying his $200 a month versus the $600 an hour. So I
Got
wanted to clear that up.
No, thank you for clearing that up. I apologize. And just for me, it's, I guess, in the scenarios that
For you.
yeah, when people
Exactly.
are reaching out to me to when I refer them to you, it just like
Yes.
makes sense at that time.
And
so
most attorneys I deal with, that's what they refer me, is
Yeah.
the ones either not in their jurisdiction,
Yeah.
not in the area of law that they practice, because
Yeah.
everyone comes to you thinking you can do everything, or they can't afford you. So most attorneys that I deal with, that's the referral I get from them.
Absolutely. And also let me give context to why I said what I said. So sometimes there are scenarios where, let's say, a situation is not like the cost of the benefit to the
Yes.
client is only a couple $1,000s, okay? And hiring an attorney for hourly wage, attorney's cost is anywhere from $300 to $1,000 an hour for a lawyer.
Yes.
So it is literally going to cost more for you to hire the attorney than it is for you to resolve the matter and any amount of money you're ever going to get back from it.
Correct.
So there are times where people call me and I'm just like, let me give you all the advice I can, but it does not make sense for you to hire me.
Right.
You're going to end up getting nothing. And for an attorney to jump into a case, I can't just kind of jump in.
No, you have to jump.
Once I've given, because I have a lot of professional rules that if I don't fully commit and if I mess you up, I could lose my license. So it's like, I can't go half foot in I need full in or full out.
100%.
And so for that reason, there are times where it doesn't make sense to hire an attorney as your legal counsel, but LegalShield is the answer.
Yes.
Because LegalShield will they'll do everything but actually litigate the case, right? Or will they litigate it too? They will litigate it.
At a 25% discount.
So I'm not gonna mess this up. I'm just gonna let Tracy tell us about LegalShield. So what is LegalShield? What does it do? How can it help people?
Awesome. LegalShield is, think of it what your healthcare does for your attorney and for your doctors and medical fees, we do for your attorney and legal fees. So it's a suite of services for a monthly fee that you get, and we'll do anything. It's either covered under that month, under your coverage or at a discount. So I try to tell people, if you have a legal issue, think of LegalShield.
Okay.
And then call, and then we'll walk you through that. And so I don't think you want me to go through like all of our services or.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things like you guys handle everything from estate planning to tenants. Anything that's
Any
really
area of
illegal.
law,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I think.
So-
do you guys even do personal injury? I'm not sure if you guys do.
We do, but that's
Yeah, but you
that's
do.
not-
Got it. Yeah.
yeah.
But
But
so
that would be at a discount.
Yeah,
And
got it.
so a lot
Okay.
of times I have attorneys that actually are on our panels
Yeah.
that we will refer out to them because they accept the discount that we'll give them, right?
Got it.
So, but the majority of it is, like you said earlier, people aren't used to using attorneys.
Yeah.
And so what I like is it's getting them in the habit of actually just calling for anything.
Yeah.
Don't Google an answer because you don't even know if you're Googling the right thing, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask a friend.
Google
or,
attorneys are the best.
Yes, right. Don't ask a friend at work. Don't ask, go to someone that specializes
Yeah.
in that area. If you have a tooth issue, you go to a dentist, right?
Yeah.
If you have a car problem, you go to a mechanic.
Yeah.
So when you have an issue, get that advice from someone educated in that area of law,
Yeah.
so that you can make intelligent decisions. So for
Yeah.
me, if all we did was unlimited consultation, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
It really would, just to have access to the knowledge. And so I think it makes smarter decisions. It gets you out of complications. Sometimes you think you're right. Law is not always logical. It's legal.
Yeah.
So you think that's just not right, but that's not the law.
Yeah.
And so I think giving people access to the information is powerful. The Supreme Court says equal justice under law, but it's just not true. It's how much you can afford.
Yeah.
And if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. And if you don't have access to them, what good are they? And so I'm really
If you
passionate.
don't know your rights, you don't have any. And what was the second one?
If you don't have access to them, what good are they? If you can't afford it,
Yeah.
then what good
I
are they?
like those quotes. I know you say them a lot, so sometimes you go through them quickly, but
Okay.
there's a lot of details to those quotes.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to repeat them.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so think of it like a legal insurance. In California, we're just a service. In some
Yeah.
states, we actually are an insurance, but for legal. And so that you can pick up the phone and have peace of mind. I think LegalShield it levels the playing field. It makes you not worry
Yeah.
about things. It gives you access. And so in a nutshell, things like consultation, letters or
Yeah.
phone calls. When you write a letter, it goes to customer care. And I tell
Yeah.
people all the time, customer care doesn't always care, right?
Yeah.
But when an attorney writes a letter,
Yeah.
it goes to a legal department. And like
Yeah.
you said, there's a whole bunch of standards that have to happen with that. And so
Yeah.
a lot of times, just the consultation, know where you stand, and the letter from the attorney will
Yeah.
solve the issue. And so they'll write letters, they'll review contracts.
And they'll
They-
answer any legal questions that you have.
Exactly.
Which is rad. And that
Yeah.
access to that knowledge is something that's insane, especially because it sounds like you are really giving them access to any type of lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And how does that back end work? Do you guys just have who is the owner and what has he done to create this network?
Yeah.
Does he just
Perfect.
find the best law firm for this specific niche and then all the attorneys have to be available, or how does that work?
No, I love that. Great question. Because people are like, for anywhere from $20 to $200, what kind of attorney? Are they past the bar?
Yeah.
Are they in a bar? Are they behind a bar?
Yeah,
Chris,
they're
for
behind a
that-
bar. Yeah. That's funny.
It's a collective buying power, just like insurance. And so we used to be an open panel. I've been with the company 23 years independently. But before we refer out just to all these attorneys, and how do you do quality of service with that? Because again, if you're only getting 2 referrals from LegalShield and you have other clients, then it may not be a top priority for you,
Yeah.
right? So we are the only company in the nation that has a closed panel system, and so we get AV rated attorneys, and that's just like, if people don't know what that is, the attorneys rate each other, and Martindale Hubble and all that stuff, and so it's like the letter in the restaurant that has an AB, or So we find the attorneys that are highly rated. Law firms. We have a law firm in every single state, and that is the provider law firm for that state.
Okay.
And so they get a third of our membership dues. So a
Are
third
you guys
goes
across the country?
Yes, and in
Rad.
Canada. So
Oh, no way.
yeah. So
Rad.
that law firm, for example, in California, I don't even think I'm supposed to say money claims, but I think they get about $1.8 million a month to represent our members that are in California.
How cool.
And so we own that 800 number. If they don't perform the quality of service that we want, we can pull the 800 number and we can plug it into another law firm. So it's the first time in history that there's been a checks and balance system for attorneys, because you can call an attorney and they could never call you back. They could not perform good service. We just talked about that, and then you have to hire another attorney. You're filing something with the bar, and right. So
Let's be clear that not all lawyers are created equal.
exactly. That's why I keep people like you in my pocket. Thank you.
Yeah, and with this, it sounds like too, like, even if maybe you got an answer that you might not be 100% about, you could just call back the same number and be like, I would like to speak to a different attorney. And also too, the reason I stopped you, because I want everybody to understand is every attorney's knowledge is limited to the knowledge he has.
Right.
Listen to that again. Every attorney's knowledge is limited to the knowledge he has. He might not know everything about that niche.
Right.
And that's why it's like so important that the more you niche down into like a specialty with a lawyer, the better that they become. And so I just recommend to people that ask a second lawyer. If you know somebody in the same field, they might have a completely different opinion based on their experience. So it's up to you to do the legwork to make sure you're getting, the due diligence to make sure you're getting the answers you're looking for.
And that's what I love. You can call back, you can get a second opinion. All of our attorneys have about 23 to 25 years experience. So you're never talking to a paralegal.
Oh, awesome.
You're talking to a
serious.
experienced attorney.
Yeah.
So we've done a lot of checks and balances to make sure that when you call in, I mean, some people don't even know what attorney to call. I'm in the field for 23 years. I just called you the other day, and you're like, that's not what I do. Right?
Yeah.
So to be able to call and not worry about who do I call, what do I call, you just call this number and you're taken care of, is powerful. And so I remember when I was in my wheelchair, I thought that it was a law, ADA requirement to widen doorways in a house, right? And I was buying my first house. You have all that emotion going on, and
depends when the house was built.
That too.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't fit through my wheelchair, so I could have at the time gone in and demanded and been all hot-headed and said fix it, and they would have said that they're not going to. I called my attorney. They said that's just commercial real estate, not residential.
Yeah.
And go ask nicely. So I did, and they did it during framing stages, which saved me thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Again, having access to the knowledge. You don't always hear what you want to hear, but then you can get the information and then act accordingly after the fact, right?
If you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Real.
So letters and phone calls, contracts, if you're sued, if you're audited.
But I mean, dude, it's such a deep thing to like understand, because there's sometimes laws that you don't even know exist that are like, a lot of times they're against you because you just get a ticket or something and you're like, I didn't know. So like, it's like at the same time it's bad, but also you might just not know that there's a benefit that you're entitled to. So it's up to you to educate yourself. And so this LegalShield sounds like a great resource that people can just have access to this knowledge. And really, if you're unsure, you can just ask this question. Can we get an idea of what the pricing is like for this approximately a month?
Yeah, anywhere from $29.95 for an entire family.
Per month.
Per month. For an individual, that's just the legal plan.
Cheaper than a cocktail.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Combined plan is like $65 for the identity and the legal. That's the lowest, to about $160 plus the family plan, so like $210 for the largest business plan that we have. So less than most attorneys charge for an hour. You have a month worth of service.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's so cheap. Even for me, it's funny, like, because I know so many attorneys, I'm just like, I should probably just sign up for this when I might have a question that I just need an answer for.
I have people use it instead of their paralegal, because why not call and ask an attorney the question?
Yeah, right? That's fair. Yeah, you just have access to all this knowledge. Yeah, that's really cool. And so, I didn't realize you guys.
And even if you know people, like we have tons of attorneys in my family, but do you always want to ask your buddy for something for free? At that low cost point, why not just call the attorney and write it off as your taxes as a legal expense, right?
Yeah. That's very fair. Yeah, I didn't realize that you guys were across the country too. And who is the owner of your company?
It was Harlan Stone Cipher, and he unfortunately has passed. He was at the helm of one of the longest founders at the helm of a company. I think there was like 5 of them that we just had a story on.
Yeah.
And then it got bought out by Mid-Ocean Partners, and they bought us for about $650 million.
Mid-Ocean Partners?
That's a private equity firm.
Okay.
And then and most equity firms, they want to fix it and sell and get out of it. Well,
Yeah.
they kept their original, they paid more than their original investment to stay in the deal. And when the second company bought us, which is Stone Point Capital, and they bought us for $1.2 billion, and now we're evaluated over a $3 billion company. So,
That's rad.
yeah.
How cool.
Yeah.
And you guys are just giving people access to attorneys,
Yeah.
which is awesome. I mean, I always like to joke that we have a justice system, but we don't have a justice system. We have a legal system, and if you can't afford to play, you don't get justice.
Yeah.
And so
We create like social justice in the marketplace and economic justice in home with the services and the
Yeah.
opportunities that we provide. Yeah.
Yeah, because even like with things like small claim score is not great. And a lot of times if you can't serve the person that you're going after, you don't even get them in there. You can't get a solution. And so a lot of people just feel like they're wronged, they're taking advantage of, and you're not wrong, and you are getting taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's no resolution where people get really badly hurt or just taken advantage of. And so it's great that you're giving people a way to like speak up and also protect their rights
Voice.
and a voice. And
I never used an attorney before. And so
Yeah.
even when I first saw this, I said, why would I pay for something I never used?
Yeah.
And so it's that mindset change. And now I've used it over 300 times. It saved me over $1 million from
Yeah.
things like even as big as saving my house during
Yeah.
all the debacle with the foreclosure and the loan modifications and all that.
Yeah, and you guys even provide a will with this.
Absolutely,
Yeah, well, you
which
guys,
is huge for me. I'm a big advocate because, of course, my mom passed away.
Yeah.
And my son-in-law just passed away at 33. You never know when
and that's
you're
just
gonna pass.
complimentary with this.
Yeah, for the
Yeah.
member and the spouse. That's about $2,000 value there.
Yeah,
And you get that included in the
yeah.
membership.
I
so-
literally just had my will done by a friend. It cost me $2,000.
Well, I'm glad you did it,
Yes,
but-
but
You
I should
should've
have done it with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like this is a prime example of,
Exactly.
and that would have covered the yearly fees too.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
For
it's,
a couple of years.
yeah, a couple years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
So-
it's yeah. So
Yeah.
just for anybody thinking about this,
And
it
then the
makes a lot of
24-hour
sense.
access, I think, is our social justice part of it. So you
Yeah.
have access 24 hours a day. And in the climate of what the country is in right now, I think it's good for both sides, officers and everyone. And it doesn't even have to be like profiling. It could be a security officer in a mall. Social services gets called to your house.
Yeah.
I had one of my good friends, her daughter was depressed, and she complained at school and said something to the counselor. And then social services showed up at the house on a Friday night wanting to take the daughter out of the house.
Yeah.
What do? So to have 24-hour access to call an attorney in an emergency situation and get them
Yeah.
on the phone drastically changes things as well. My kids, we shoot fireworks off at 4th of July.
Yeah.
And they took one of the fireworks, and they're kids, and they went to a
Yeah.
party a couple months later, went to a cul-de-sac because they were bored, and they shot a firework off. And one of the neighbors said there was black kids in the neighborhood shooting guns. And they called me like, Mom, there's 6 cop cars and a helicopter. What do we do? I said, what did you do?
Yeah.
And they're like, nothing. I go, why are you calling me? Call your attorney. One, the fact that my teenage kids could call an attorney at 1 o'clock in
Yeah.
the morning on a Saturday is empowering. And there was 2 groups of kids there. And in that city, fireworks were a felony. And
Yeah.
they arrested my kids at gunpoint. Thank goodness they didn't get shot. They zip-tied them and put them back in the car with the heat on.
Yeah.
And I watched one of my sons ask to talk to their attorney at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. And the officer laughed, and then finally gave him the phone. And attorney got on the phone. In 3 rings, someone answered, and within 2 minutes, an attorney was on the phone. And my kids went home with me that night, and the other kids went home with felonies. So as valedictorian, straight-A students, honor students, playing at the time, about to go to San Diego State, what would their life look like with a
Yeah.
felony? So it's empowering for me if you have kids away at college, teenage
And
drivers.
they just called a generic number, and then somebody picked up.
We have a phone app, which is really cool for both things.
Rad.
And so there's a red button on there. In an emergency, you push it, like
Yeah.
break glass and fire, right?
Yeah.
And it connects you to an attorney. And we have attorneys on call 24 hours a day
Yeah.
in an emergency. So,
Rad.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
This is super cool. Yeah, and then you guys also offer something called ID Shield. ID Shield, from my understanding, is essentially, there's identity theft all the time.
Yeah.
And identity theft, this just happened to my dad. His identity got stolen. Somebody got a hold of some of his paperwork and his social security number. They pulled out loans, created new credit cards, and this whole debacle. And from what I understand, ID Shield provides insurance, and they check all of your credit checks and all this stuff to see if new things are being created. And then what happens, let's say that somebody does steal my identity. What does ID Shield do?
You sign a limited power of attorney and file a police report so that we know that you're not involved in the identity theft issue.
Yeah.
And then a licensed investigator will be assigned. They do the work for you. So we do whatever it takes for as long as it takes to restore your identity back to where it was before pre-theft status. And we have the most robust monitoring. So it's not just credit cards. You put in all this information about yourself, and we'll monitor all of that, not just the credit bureaus, but we're talking medical, criminal, accounting. Like before I was refinancing, before they sent me a DocuSign, before I signed it, it said, there's been a DocuSign in your name. Is this you?
Yeah.
That I got that alert. So incredible alerts to make sure that your identity is not stolen. But I like to tell people it's not just credit card. That's just like 33% of identity theft.
Yeah.
If someone becomes you, that becomes a nightmare. I think it's like financial cancer, right? Or you're being violated. And so I had a girlfriend that went to jail for 7 days because she got her credit. Someone was fixing her credit, and they used that information and bought homes in her name, and they thought that she was part of like a home buying fraud scheme.
Yeah.
And how do you get out of that?
Yeah.
How do you say? Every criminal is going to say it's not you, right? It wasn't me. So
Yeah.
they go and fix all of that and
Yeah.
restore it back to where it was, and then they give you
Yeah.
$1 million policy in case you lost money or wages or anything like that. They'll reimburse you for those things as well. And it's not like a fraud like hold where a lot of things you can't even do anything with your own identity after.
Yeah.
We actually go fix it for you and bring it back. So.
Yeah, and for those of you listening that are like, this is never going to happen to me, I've heard horror stories of like little kids that their identity is being stolen as a child, and then their credit's fucked up for the rest of their life.
Yep.
And because their parents didn't spend, what's the cost per year?
It's like $30 a month for the family.
Yeah. So it's like $300 a year
Correct.
or around that price, and you get $1 million in coverage.
Yeah.
The math makes complete sense. But more so, it's just like we live in a day and age where people can hack you.
Yep.
They can find your information. They can go through your mail and get all your stuff. And I get these phone calls because people are like, what do I do? And I'm like, did you have ID Shield? Like, that's literally like one of my first questions. Or did you have like one of those ID locks or whatever it is, right? Just find the one. And sometimes also just like a tip, sometimes your car insurance or property and casualty insurance, they offer it for you for free. Ask about this and just get it done, because it's super important, especially as we get into more and more of a digital age, that you protect yourself, because if not, you're going to be up shit creek without a paddle.
And some of those, and get whatever protection, something is better than nothing, but if you really are a victim of identity theft, if someone commits a crime in your name, and those monitoring companies aren't going to help you for the legal side of it. Yeah. And so that's why I believe we're the best coverage.
Yeah, and I have ID Shield myself too.
Right.
Yeah.
So if something happens that's beside credit card fraud or check fraud or, those things, if someone's committing a crime or doing the other things that are legal, now you have a combination nationwide to help you in that, because it doesn't usually happen in where you're at either. It happens in a different state, and now the police in California aren't going to help you with a Chicago issue of identity theft. And so it's the best part, to have both of them actually is the best coverage for identity theft. That's why they partner with us.
Gotcha, yeah. And the $1 million in coverage is great too. If somebody like buys a home or they do something illegal, you have to hire an attorney, like all these repercussions that happen with somebody taking your identity.
Right.
So it's nice to have that coverage and just peace of mind. And then really the biggest, I think, benefit too is that you guys just go solve the problem, and there isn't really anything that we need to do on our end.
Correct.
Except for sign the power of attorney and allow you guys to do what needs to be done.
Right. And the monitoring you get, and you'll get your credit reports, and so you'll keep it up to date, just having the information at your hand, palm of your hand as well.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Yeah, ID Shield.
And then we cover, just
LegalShield.
so for a little bit more information too, we cover individuals. We can offer this as an employee benefit. So anyone that's listening that owns a company, it enhances your benefit package. It increases productivity, reduces absenteeism. If someone's at work dealing with a divorce or got a ticket, they're calling in sick to go handle that, right? Legal issues become personal issues. And
this is great. We should talk about that. I want to offer it to my team.
You can offer it as a benefit, and then we have a business plan, cover businesses, and then we have some specialty plans, so like a truck driving plan and that kind of thing for city LP drivers and foster parents and teachers and government. So we have some specialty plans too for different professions as well. So
yeah, because you're right. Because I mean, like for me, I'm just thinking I want to offer this to my team because it's kind of like selfish. It's just, if something happened, then they have to put all their time and energy into dealing with it. I'm like almost reverse, like dealing with my own problem ahead of the time.
You are.
Where it's like, I'll spend this money to just make sure that there's going to be no issues. And then essentially if there is an issue, then it's already going to be handled and they can keep working and getting stuff done. It's like
1,400 hours to handle an identity theft issue, and that's during business hours. You have to call Social Security, DMV. You can't call them after work, right? So they're dealing with all of that during that time.
For sure.
And then 50% of Americans have a legal issue right now too. So they're dealing with that during work hours.
No, for sure. And so like, it's funny, I give like a little example is like when my client or not clients. So when my employees try to move from one house to another, I'm like, I will pay for your moving.
Right.
All of it. They're like, no, I'm going to save the money. I'm going to move it box by box. I'm like, you are not. You're getting back to work immediately.
Exactly.
I'm paying for the movers, whatever the cost is, because literally the cost of losing you costs me more money than just paying for the mover to handle it for you. So I mean, it's all just little things of optimization. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Anthony's moving, hopefully.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, okay, good.
100%. Yeah. So I mean, I think we've covered pretty much everything in regards to ID Shield and Legal Shield. Is there anything else that we have not covered that you think would be good information for anybody looking to maybe sign up with this, or just any other things in that realm?
No, I think I'm just really passionate about helping people have access. I think the justice system, like you said, it's legal, and that's how I started. So I guess I'll just end with that. Is that I had a florist, and I was in my wheelchair, and I was paying everyone before I paid myself, and I thought I was getting my own business, and I bought myself another job because I paid everyone before me. And then we, like with my wheelchair, when people didn't show up, I had to like carry flowers upstairs and then my wheelchair upstairs, and I was just like, this isn't what I was looking for. So my best friend, they offered this as an employee benefit at her company, and she thought I would need the service. And so she showed me the service. One letter from my attorney to all my medical doctors wiped out my medical bills.
Mom.
And I was flabbergasted.
Yeah.
And then with my child support issues, the attorney helped me through that. That ended up being 18 years of drama. And that's when I got passionate about helping people with this. Yeah. So I used it first, and that's what that's what I'm passionate about, is helping people have access and have a voice and be empowered. And it started with me using it myself first.
Yeah, it's funny because like you're basically helping give people confidence and just like surety. And there's sometimes when people call me and I can't help, and I'm just like, I feel so lost because I'm like, I feel so sorry that I can't help them. But then really the solution is just have them sign up for LegalShield, and then they can feel a bit more confidence. So it's awesome that you're giving people peace of mind.
Need it than need it, not have it. And don't wait till it's an issue. That's what most people do. And as you probably can contest, is a lot of times it's too late. They didn't do stuff beforehand, right? And so to have it and have it available when you need it is probably the best course of action.
Yep.
Don't wait till it's a problem. I don't want 911. Like, I'm having this right now. Yeah. You know, get protection, and then you'll handle that situation better before, it happens.
Yeah, I agree. All right. On that note, we can wrap it up. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we close up today, or anything you might have to ask me, or do you feel good where we're at now?
Thank you for being the human being that you are, and it's a blessing to call you my friend. And I'm glad that I got out here and we met at work, and I feel like I even know more about you than I knew before. Yeah. And so what you were talking about relationships and being this close, I think it's true. And so you've poured into me today, and I just wanted to say thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming and sharing your story. What a wild story. And I appreciate you going back to those places that might not have felt so comfortable, because like really listening to those stories of the people that have been through the struggle and like that have had to rebuild themselves, like I think that's a really good reminder to people that no matter how bad it is or how dark it can get, you can always pick yourself back up and you can literally walk again.
Yes.
And that's, I think, sometimes a lot of people get in their head and woe is me. And, I don't want to use the term victim mentality because that's not it. It's just there's always a light at the end of the tunnel. It's your job to find the light, and no one's going to do that for you.
Yeah. Probably the third thing, I don't even know how I excluded that, was being raped. And so when you said pain, that was probably that would be the third thing. And when you said how you look at it in closing, that is what it is. And for me, not victim mentality, but no excuses. So I guess that's my never quit and no excuses. Any excuse will do. Just say you don't have any peanut butter, right? Yeah. Then you'll laugh knowing that you're making an excuse. And, I don't have time, I don't have money, I wasn't good enough, I don't, everything that voice that talks to yourself, you have to change and listen to the other one and not have any excuses. So anything's possible, never quit, and no excuses. Yeah.
Everything that happens in your life, it's up to you how it's going to affect you.
Yeah.
and it can crush you or it can raise you up.
Correct.
And no one can choose that for you.
Yes. And don't compare yourself to other people, because what I've gone through, people, oh, well, I haven't gone through what she's gone through. People have it worse than me, but for you, it's a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And so just use other people and what they've gone through, the qualities and characteristics that they used to get through it, and apply it to yours, because for you, maybe that your boyfriend broke up with you is the end of the world.
Yeah.
And it doesn't compare to me being paralyzed twice and
Yeah.
my whole thing. But what I did to get through mine, use that to get through yours.
Yeah. And there is no comparison, because you are exactly where you should be at the exact perfect time at this moment in your life. And it's just, we're all experiencing things in our own way. And it's not saying that, what you suffered is harder than what other people have suffered. To each of us, whatever we're going through is just as important as whatever you went through. It's just, those were the cards you were dealt. These were the cards I were dealt. And the question is, how am I going to play my hand?
Exactly.
And you're entitled to feel however you want about your cards.
Yeah.
But what you do with your cards, that's your choice.
Yes.
And that's up to you to figure out how you're going to play it.
Yes.
And so, so I agree. I resonate with everything you just said. And, probably have their own podcast on each one of those little nuances, which is very real. And, it was a thought I was having earlier during the podcast where, there's a lot of common themes between things that I talk about and things that I've had as guests on the podcast. And, maybe somebody will hear it on this podcast, but maybe they didn't hear it on another one. And so I sometimes worry about repeating myself. But that's the thing is maybe this is the only episode that somebody will listen to, and this is when they needed to hear it.
And or people need to hear things multiple times before it finally clicks.
Exactly.
Right? So.
And I need to talk about it multiple times before I understand it.
Yeah.
And that's each time I repeat it, it adds a brick to the foundation of really this being a pillar of something that I believe in and I can express to other people and do it in a different way.
And the more time it comes up is validity that is an issue. And look, it's not just me. A lot of people think it's only happening to me. And so that that's happened to that person too, and that person. So let me actually try to solve this situation.
Yeah. And also too, it might be that we needed to have this conversation, even though I've had it with other people, you needed to hear it, right? So it's it's just leaning into the intuition and feeling into what needs to be said at the right moment. And that's a whole different skill set in itself. And I'm stoked to see that it's developing well within me, and you already have it. And that's something I've known from the first day we spoke to each other. So it's great to just see that, because sometimes I think when you talk about your business because you do it so much, that's the only time where but every other conversation we've ever had, it's you're really good leaning into listening to what their person has to say and discussing exactly what needs to come across. And I think too, a lot of the not stories, but the things you've been through, those are very heavy things. And sometimes I don't know how much people really dive into it and elaborate on that stuff. And once again, just the way you're able to talk about those things is very brave, and just the fact that you're able to express it in an easy way shows the amount of work that you've done on yourself and how you're able to express it now. Yeah.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, you're very welcome. All right. I think this feels good.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for chiming in. I hope you love this story. This was a lot of fun. That's it. Okay, love you guys. Bye.
Bye.